Sara. Very welcome to Sara Fitzmaurice, who is CEO and founder of Fitz & Co. We're very pleased that you've taken time to be with us, since we know that for 30 years you've been working for Art Basel, managing their communications for North and South America, and this is a big week for Art Basel. Thank you very much for coming, Sara.
Pleasure, thank you.
And in this time, Sara in particular would like to have a more interactive session. So she would like to, basically, she asked me and I said, absolutely, you should do it. She would like to approach you as if you were a potential client and go through it in a question and answer format. Please.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks for including me, and congrats to you on all of the amazing work that AWARE has done so far. I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot more to do. And I think we're looking at the premise of how do we make AWARE more impactful globally. And I have some just quick touch points, and then I think we can get into the US footprint idea as well. But you know, if we're thinking about what AWARE does and how to make it more impactful, more global, I think we have to back up to some basics. As I got into it a bit on your website and your social media, a simple thing that I noticed immediately is the mission statement still says 19th and 20th century women artists. And I understand from the actual work that you're doing through you know, looking at the podcasts and the awards, that it includes women of the 21st century. Absolutely. And so I think there needs to be a full update and a review of all of that, because while it's so important to bring recognition to women artists, and especially those that have been overlooked, and more global expression of that from the 19th and 20th century, your 21st century artists are where the opportunity is to connect with live audiences, I think, in a deeper way, and especially with younger audiences, which we've been talking about appealing to with Harrison's conversation around the social token and ideas like that. So that might be one thing to look at immediately. With our clients and their objectives, we always try to think about the biggest objective first. So to me, it's not should we have a footprint in the US, it's how do we expand our global footprint. And then you know, the US comes after that. And I think for what AWARE is doing, where you are sitting on this rich content, I mean, we're surrounded by this extraordinary collection of books, you have online video. The way you're expressed online, on social media, on your website, I think is really underperforming. And so I think leveraging, meeting people where they are. The art world globally is on Instagram. The art world globally is moving to Web3. It is on the website. I also think that you need to look at, are we a French nonprofit or are we a global nonprofit? Because that may change how you express yourself through language. If the objective is to be a global nonprofit, it should lead with English and follow with French, in my opinion. So those are some of the tactical things that I think that you could look at right away. And also, if we were, you know, again, if you were our client, we would really deep dive with you into your demographics and your analytics. We would look holistically at who's visiting the website, where do they live, maybe you've done some of this work. But I think leveraging that data and having that drive your strategy forward as well, so that we know we need to grow our Instagram followers in whatever, maybe it's in the US, maybe it's in, you know, pick another place. Maybe it's in France. So those are some of the things that I learned just in the little bit of review in the materials that Scott shared. Maybe you have a follow-up question, or I can jump into thoughts on the U.S.
Why don't you jump into thoughts on the U.S., or do you want to answer about it?
No, yes, we can. We have analytics about who's visiting the website and who's on Instagram, which I don't have, but my team has.
Okay, maybe we don't have to go into that in particular.
So I think leveraging those, because actually your follower count, given the content that you have and given the level of artists that you're expressing on behalf of, is actually quite low.
No, I agree with that completely.
Yeah. So I think when I look at holistically the question of should we go more into the U.S., I would look at what are the objectives to expand more globally, to have greater representation and penetration of these artists within the market. And when I mean the market, I mean global culture, not the financial art market. And then how do we do that? So, and then I would, take a budget as a pie, whatever your budget is for expansion, and I would look at it and say, it costs X to do whatever, open the 501c3 in the US. Maybe that money is better spent on engaging an agency like ours or somebody else to do a whole social media strategy where you're meeting people online, or to redesign the website. I find the website to be a bit esoteric and not user-friendly, and I don't think it would be supportive of Web3 in the conversation that we had about entering into Web3. So I think there would need to be some investment on that side as well.
So since you're talking about investment, let's be clear. One of the main objectives is to provide Aware with a stable financial base and a multi-year stable financial base, so they can continue what they're doing and expand. Camille has many programs that are ready to be run, and ready to be run not on, really globally, and it's just a question of a lack of finance and a lack of multi-year finance. So we're talking about a footprint in the US as the largest potential opportunity for financial support.
Right.
That's really what we're addressing. So everything that one would look to in terms of communication strategy is really not just getting more followers, but more followers who actually contribute financially.
Right, so raising awareness supports fundraising. So we put together and we administer the American Friends of Fondation Baylor, which is a 501c3 based in the US. Setting up a 501c3 you can do, it's not that complicated.
This is what I do.
Yeah, you get an attorney, you get an accountant, you get a bookkeeper, that sets it up. Also, a requirement of a 501c3 in the US is you have to have a certain number of donors who come from a diverse pool. So you do need to meet that donor base every single year. It's not that many, I think it's manageable, but the biggest hurdle for a 501c3 in the US is the actual fundraising. So who is going out and raising the money? Are you coming to the US to raise the money? Do you have a deep network of potential American donors? Does your advisory board? The only way that a 501c3 for a smaller budgeted foundation nonprofit like Aware, the only way that it works effectively is if you have a strong fundraiser, or you get board members who are champions of what you're doing, who are out pulling in their friends. You have to know about this organization, will you contribute, and the like. And it's not that easy. I mean, there is a lot of funds to be raised out of the US. There is the tradition and history of giving in a different way than Europe, as we well know, but actually harnessing it and getting them to make the contribution. It is appealing for US-based people to have a repository of a donation that is tax deductible. And I think the minimum that needs to be raised is you have to raise a certain amount to maintain your status. I think it might be as low as like $50K. It's not that high. And then when you have a big donor who does want to cut a check, it's great to have that status, but it doesn't run itself. You do need someone to administer it who understands what they're doing.
But in your experience, you have this experience with the American Friends of Fondation Baylor. How has that gone? Has it been relevant for them?
It has been relevant for them, but the director of the Baylor, by and large, is the one who is, shaking the trees, if you will, who's leveraging his network to secure those donations. And so currently it's as effective as he is in terms of his outreach. And we have not yet focused on putting together a board that is actively raising funds. Whereas the Tate Americas Foundation, which we have also worked with, they have an incredibly active board. They have a big board. And they, that would be sort of, to me, the gold standard of US nonprofits that support overseas institutions. It's one of them. It's an excellent example, but it's a huge effort and it has a big budget.
And a lot of curators, I think, spending their time in the US, and I knew one of them was in charge of the American Friends, and it was a lot of his time.
It is a lot. It takes a lot of time and relatiogrelationships to raise money.
I mean,
I know that because I've done that for Centre Pompidou.
Voilà.
So I know
This is what
effort.
Camille and I did this work together.
So I agree with what you say in the sense that we would have to have a large group of donors already out there, which we don't have.
And where I began the conversation is really about visibility. And I agree with Scott's statement earlier that Aware is really under-recognized in the US. I mean, I think that people don't know it. And so to me, a cost-effective, simple way to raise visibility is through improving the website and through Instagram, and then also having presence at these key art fair moments or these key art weeks, whether it's the Venice Biennale, or Paris Plus this week, having good visibility where you're engaging with people and you're encouraging them to share their stories. I think the social tokenization is an interesting one to encourage people to share their stories about Aware, to grow brand awareness. But the growing brand awareness is essential when you're raising funds. If you're starting the conversation and they've never heard of you, you have a lot of education to do before you can even bring them to the table.
So basically what you're saying is that here, as a result of Aware curating the Frieze Masters Spotlight section, they had this incredible press.
Right.
And the press was really related to the fact that Aware is doing fundamental work, and is recognized by doing the fundamental work. How does it, and then this has already happened in the past, which is that Camille also curated a section at the Armory. What happens in time is that she always finds some wealthy person who's willing to give a cocktail or a dinner, following, because it's prestigious. Camille is there. They have done the spotlight thing, and they do it, and everybody comes to the cocktail and dinner, and then nothing happens afterwards. In other words, the checks don't come in, and it doesn't result in the impact that is wanted.
Not exactly nothing, because
not exactly nothing.
No, some people come, and then after, like out of the 80 people in the dinner, maybe 10 of them will engage in Aware in one way or another, give a check like a year later, or talk to friends who will give a check. So it's not like nothing. But I agree with you in the fact that we were unlucky with the Armory, because we were at the Armory in March 2020.
Yeah.
And at the end of the Armory was the complete shutdown because of COVID. So we just got really unlucky with that, because we would have had American press and maybe American donors, but really something fell down on us, on all of us, that completely erased the process of Aware in New York in the Armory. But what we're doing in Frieze, I think, proved that it's efficient. I mean, curating a fair section has been it's a leverage to something new. So it's also a lot of work for the team, but.
So then holistically looking at, what is the strategy? What's the follow-up? How do you data capture on the platform? How do you amplify what you're doing on that Frieze platform? How do you get others at Frieze to amplify what you're doing on the Frieze platform? How do you capture brand halo from the artists that you're a champion of, especially those who are living and who have really high visibility? And that really is getting up here and creating a whole strategic plan around each initiative. What's the follow-up? What's the goal? And benchmarking those goals and then taking the steps to achieve them, which is a lot of work and takes man and woman power. Person power.
Absolutely.
So Harrison is asking a question relative to branding partnerships, and whether or not he's asking if Sara thinks it's relevant to have branding partnerships with Aware, and if there's an opportunity in the United States.
I think it's extremely relevant, and again, it goes back to the brand halo. Essentially, what you did with Frieze in some way is a brand partnership. That's where you can take your brand, which has smaller visibility, smaller follower count, incredible content, and you can amplify it on the brand partners' platforms. I would imagine for some fashion brands that, especially those that target women, leveraging your content across onto their platform can legitimize them and what they're doing, and at the same time you can turn Aware onto their audiences. So I think that's a highly effective tool and should be explored for sure.
But the thing is, I understand what you're saying, and I agree and disagree, because for example, we've been supported for many years by Chanel, who gave us a lot of money, but they didn't want to be mentioned, or barely, because it's not like the spirit of their brand to be mentioned when they give money. And also, if they're mentioned too much, then we are not non-profit anymore, because somehow we are getting commercial. So it's kind of a difficult balance to find.
You have to strike the balance, and you're right. You don't want to appear too commercial and like you've sold your soul, or you've sold the soul of Aware.
But even the brand doesn't want to. They can be mentioned to a certain amount, because otherwise it's becoming commercial, and we want to remain tax deductible. Yes.
There's other brands, I think, that that paradigm can work with.
Okay.
So basically, you're saying, Sara, that you think that this Camille's concern is, of course, a legitimate concern, and you can find the balance between a partnership with a brand without it being seen as too commercial. And of course, there's some brands, presumably, who are not as careful as Chanel in terms of wanting to be known, that one can. And that's something that also that you work on that aspect as well?
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm.
You do work on this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
From the structure of the Aware's participation as curator of the Spotlight section, did you get any funds from your involvement as curator at Frieze?
We were given a fee as curators, which is very, very low compared to the work we've done.
Did it cover the costs of you doing this?
No. Absolutely not.
Was there a negotiation that was possible?
No, I didn't, but I didn't also realize the amount of time that we would spend on working on that. So now I know, so next time I will negotiate more. But of course, we couldn't get any percentage from the sales, although we could see that the value of all these women that we showed really was increased. There was a lot of selling, a lot of buying. Which is fine, because this is also one of the purposes of Aware is also getting more recognition, but recognition comes out also at market value. So I'm not bothered by participating in increasing a market value. I cannot get any part of it directly.
Yeah.
Because I have to remain non-profit.
Right. One thought that I had as I was looking at Aware and thinking about women artists, there are, women artists, both estates, the late women artists who are now reflected as an estate, and living women artists who are highly, highly successful.
Right.
I wonder if you have ever thought to create a consortium of successful women artists and estates supporting your initiative, where it's almost like a club. Where then their names are an imprimatur, unaware, they're bringing brand halo, if you will. I would never say that to an artist, but that is effectively what it is in marketing. And they're joining a membership circle to support Aware's mission, sort of with women helping other women. I find that is something that's very interesting. There's a lot of interest in that right now. And you could develop a campaign around it. Maybe there's a brand partner that comes in to sponsor it, and it spotlights in videos, the living women artists, why they're doing this. I think there could be an interesting development scheme, if you will, in the British sense of the word scheme, plan that could be put together that might be quite interesting, that could be appealing to a brand partner.
Sara's right. There's one of the growth sectors of nonprofit foundations in the United States is artist-endowed foundations. And it used to be historical, so you have very important ones like Helen Frankenthaler Foundation. You have all of the major artists have pretty much created, the estates created foundations, but at the moment even living artists are creating foundations because they want to have control over this. And I think she's exactly right. This is a good opportunity to do that.
No, it's a very good idea. I thought about it, didn't really have time to do it.
It's a question of time.
We've been supported regularly by the Nikit Saint-Phal Foundation because I know them very well. Nice. And I met them again at Frieze, and one of the member of the board was at the dinner, the fundraising dinner, and he actually wrote me a really nice note saying, after hearing you, and I know you very well, we want to support you on a multi-annual base. So it's not a huge amount of money, but yes, if we could have like 3 or 4 of these or more, that would help.
I was thinking like 30.
Yeah, 30. Nikki, just to give you...
I don't know 30 of them, but
you could. Nikki is not the best endowed of them. You know, there are other ones that could have, and I think I agree with
Also,
Sarah.
the
All of this is
galleries, the galleries who are profiting on, you know, women artists. I think, you know, there could be a consortium of galleries that are pulled together, even if they gave, I mean, this would be incentive to set up a 501c3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if they gave 10K a year, and
That's
it's an
right.
annual membership, and they go on a list, and they are acknowledged, or maybe it's 25K, and there's different tiers, but pulling in the galleries to sort of a membership circle, I think could be quite important. And I think you set up the 501c3, I think, if there's a reason to do it. So you approach a range of US foundation artists, women artist-led foundations, US galleries or galleries with a footprint in the US, and you create these different levels of giving. You know, we're setting up a 501c3, we're creating a gallery circle, we're creating a women artist circle. Would you consider joining? Now your 10s and your 25s start to add up, and it justifies having the circle, or the 501c3 rather.
Although when I started Aware, I was really naive and thought the galleries would be the first to help, but they hardly gave me anything. It's only recent that a few galleries helped, but even the largest galleries like Hauser and Wirth, and this had to be edited, of course, or Gagosian, never gave a penny.
Well, I think this we're going to continue to talk about. I think it would be interesting to hear when we're going to hear from people like Candy about that. You know, what they means they didn't see value in Aware for what they're doing, selling the art,
I think
which
it's
is interesting.
Messaging. I
yeah,
think
it's the messaging because they have if they saw value,
and the messaging.
Under recognition.
Yeah.
You're right. It's under recognition. So it goes back to
Oh,
the whole social campaign, and I also think these social tokens can help. All of
So
this
you
can
think
help.
they didn't respond because they don't know us enough?
Correct.
And it's not.
Okay.
And if they don't know
And there's
it,
not like
if there's an enormous
there's
if
not-
there's enormous following, you know, then it's more difficult for them to not be
say no.
seen participating in supporting this fundamental
right.
work.
And also the way that you're messaging about what Aware does really needs an overhaul. And the website is very esoteric, like it's not conducive to marketing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're
I think we're going to go on to
welcome.
the next person.